Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I'm Scott. This is Five-Year Battle, Agatha Christie, 1946 through 1950. As you can see, I'm surrounded by Christmas. This is our guest room, which I have finally cleaned out a little bit, and it's always in Christmas. Obviously, I'm wearing a Christmas shirt. I tend to get started early on Christmas, which usually means clearing a bunch of boxes in here, which you can't see are right over there. We are going to discuss the books for the years 1946 through 1950. As I mentioned in the last video, Christie's output has decreased. She still publishes 8 books in this time frame. That's still a pretty healthy output, but much less than, 13 that she was publishing before. So we are going to start. Published in 1946 is The Hollow. I'll be honest with this one. I wondered when I was going over these books if I had actually read this one. I could have swore I read all the Christie books last year, all except for the Mary Westmacott books. But when I was reading about it, it's like I don't remember this. So I went to the Wikipedia site. Did you? Oh, you jumped up there. Okay. I went to the Wikipedia site and checked out the synopsis. Uh, I I just think it's fairly ridiculous. I read the synopsis a few days ago and I have pretty much forgot about most of it. I will have to say that not a lot stands out about this book, except one thing is that it is said that Perot has never done anything. Perot has never done a certain thing until Curtain. And if you have read Curtain, you probably know what it is. I think this book belies that. Uh, I guess it would all depend on your point of view, but in my point of view, no, he's already done it. So, also the entire family, I remember now. Just oh yeah, the entire family is ridiculous. I think this is we're getting in a time period where I am getting exasperated with Christie characters because a lot of them are all the same, and I don't necessarily suggest that they are espousing Christie's views, but they all seem to share the same views, and it goes over decades. So, I mean, obviously, this book is number one at the moment because it's the only book, but it's not going to stay here. Book number 2, published in 1947, is The Labors of Hercules. It is a short story collection, contains 12 stories that basically correspond to the Labors of Hercules, the Greek mythological character. These stories bear the same names as the task that Hercules did. Largely, these stories are kind of forced to meet that task, some less successfully than others. I will also be honest, I think I have been clear about this in previous outings. I do not appreciate Christie's story collections as much as I do her novels. The exception to that being The Mysterious Mr. Quinn, which is a beloved story collection. But generally, story collections are not something I'm particularly interested when it comes to Christie. This one is also one that does not have any Hastings in it, I believe. It does have his new secretary, Miss Lemon, who has appeared in other books. I believe she appeared in a Parker Pine book before this, and I mean that's a step up for her, going from Parker Pine to Hercule Poirot. But I don't really believe that character adds anything. Ariadne Oliver is fine. She also appears in it, but overall, don't particularly care for the collection. And because it's a short story collection, and I don't think the stories are anything memorable or particularly worthy, I'm going to go and put this under the Hollow, which is not a good book. This week's first physical book that I have, it's Taken at the Flood, published in 1948. Yes, published in 1948. Uh, it's another book, didn't particularly remember. I read up on it, not a particularly memorable story, no characters that I like. And the thing that I do remember that really stuck out to me in this novel is that a man wins a woman's love because he tries to strangle her because that shows how much he cares. So, yeah, that this is at the bottom for me. It's a Christie's characters have never been particularly likable. You know, they're generally involved in a murder plot somehow, either as a suspect, a victim, or a murderer. But as we go along, I think they just become more unlikable, and it's less like, oh, I hope this person's the murderer, or I can't believe that person wasn't. It's just like, oh, could you please all just go away? So yeah, bottom. Right now, for the years 1946 through 50, it seems more not a race to who's going to be number one, but who's going to be the bottom book, because we just keep going lower and lower. Also published in 1948 is the fourth Mary Westmacott book, The Rose and the Yew Tree. Uh, it's a Mary Westmacott book, so I don't like it. We will see in 2 or 3 weeks when I finish the last one. I'm going to guess right now that I'm not going to like any of the Mary Westmacott books. I think this one is better than the previous three, but just slightly. There's no flashback to anybody's youth, which I enjoyed, but we do have a, an almost immediate flashback because we get the story from a man's point of view. He is an invalid. He This is set at a time he goes and meets a dying man, and then we flash back to a time before, and most of the novel is spent in that flashback. Basically, the first and the last chapters are set in the later time frame. Everything else is this flashback. Um, it's sort of about a romance, but not really. Uh, and again, as I mentioned in the previous books, as we're going along with Christie, we're meeting people who are less and less likable, but also we're meeting people who are the same as other characters in other books. Like, oh, good, the unemotional woman who tells other people that everything they're doing is wrong and they don't understand stuff. And I want to point out that the narrator is a man who was involved in an accident and was paralyzed. And two characters in this book tell him that he doesn't know suffering. Two people who are mobile, who generally don't have a lot of issues, and it's just, I do believe that we are seeing Christie's prejudices show through some of these novels. I don't generally enjoy Christie relationships. I mean, as I said in the previous novel I talked about, Taken at the Flood, a woman is attracted to a man because he tried to kill her by strangling her. So I'm not saying what she believes or not, but she tends to put forth a men with violent passions, whether it's physical violence or, this one isn't physical, but he's I don't know, just very dramatic and uh yeah, I just I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy Mary Westmacott. I didn't read them because I thought they were romances, and they're actually worse than romances. And of course, I have read romances recently, and there are good romances. But you know, when I first started reading Christie, romances wasn't the type of thing I was looking for. Uh, it's not. I'm actually gonna I'm gonna put this above Labor of Hercules. Yeah, it's not a good book, and there are many characters in it that annoy the crap out of me, but it's still the best Mary Westmacott book I've read. Book number 5 is another story collection published in 1948, I believe. I forgot to write the number down, so if I have the year incorrect, I will pop something right down here. 1948 or 1949. It's The Witness for the Prosecution and Others. Witness for the Prosecution is a good story. I think it's actually a good story, not just good for a Christie short story. An Accident is amusing, but honestly, the rest of the stories are below normal Christie level, and other than The Witness for the Prosecution, I don't really think much for anything else. There's not really a lot to say about this. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that for most story collections, especially as we get along. I think her interesting short story collections, we are past those. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. I do think that I'm going to put this. Well, it's definitely above Labors of Hercules, but is it also above The Rose and the Yew Tree, or is it below The Rose and the Yew Tree? The Rose and the Yew Tree is a novel. And I tend to elevate novels, but who I if I were to put it above The Rose and the Yew Tree, it would be only because of The Witness for the Prosecution. One story, to some degree, accident, but I'm going to put it below The Rose and the Yew Tree. Book number 6, published in 1949, is Crooked House. It is a novel. It is a murder mystery, not a series one. No Hercule Poirot, no Miss Marple. No characters that we have really seen before. I think uh, the police superintendent may have been a minor character in other works, but not anything that really stood out. Aristotle Leonidas has died. Mispronounced that. I apologize. You should be used to that by now. Um, and it's apparently under suspicious uh, means. A Charles Hayward is in love with Sophia. his daughter, but she refuses to get married until everybody has been cleared. His father Charles is a assistant commissioner at Scotland Yard. So I mean, I think probably poor police work to involve a civilian, but they do, and they try to discover uh, what happened, and there are other incidents, other deaths. I don't want to spoil anything for you, as I try not to do with any of these, but especially a book like this where I think the twist ending is actually a twist ending. We are. I don't mean to keep. I don't mean to keep poo-pooing uh, it, but we are in the era of Agatha Christie books where the twist endings, where the murder solutions just aren't as good as they once were. But I think this is an exception. I think this is a good twist ending. It is one that made me go, whoa. And I was not expecting that when I first read it. And I've also reread this book, and I think it's a good reread. That's, I think, the sign of a good mystery is even if you know what happens and you still reread it and are still entertained. And that's the case here with Crooked House. I think quite easily in this 5 year period, this is number one. We have two more books left. I don't think they will beat it, but we'll see. But yeah, this is number one for right now. Number 7 is Miss Marple book. It was published in 1950. It is called A Murder is Announced. I think I said that each Miss Marple book has decreased since the great start of A Murder at the Vicarage. I would say that this one is a step up. It was very enjoyable. There, I think there were more shenanigans with the solution to the murder than there needed to be, but I still think it was entertaining. It as a novel and as an Agatha Christie mystery, you get eye roll moments in here, but still very entertaining. I enjoyed it. I'm going to put that at book number 2. And quite honestly, it's an easy book number 2. Right now we have book 1, book 2, and then all the other books are down here. Okay, so we have one more book left. Okay, I think we're pretty set that the number one book is the number one book. Book number 8 is Three Blind Mice and Other Stories, published in 1950. Obviously, a short story collection. The story Three Blind Mice itself is an alternative version of the Mousetrap, which is the long running play that she had written. There are 4 Miss Marple stories in here, and I think they're all good. There are 3 pretty good Hercule Poirot stories, and there's a Harley Quinn story. Now, I don't think it really stands up to the stories in the collection, The Mysterious Mr. Quinn, but it's still a pretty good story. This is definitely the best story collection of the 3 that we have in this 5 year period. And I think I'm actually going to put this above The Hollow, so it's going to be book number 3. Okay, so we have 8 books for the years 1946 through 1950. Coming in at number 8 is Taken at the Flood. Coming in at number 7, Labors of Hercules. At number 6 is The Witness for the Prosecution and Other Stories. At number 5, a pretty good rating for a Mary Westmacott book is The Rose and the Yew Tree. Still not a good Mary Westmacott book yet, but the best one so far. Coming in at number 4 is The Hollow. And yeah, just one Hercule Poirot novel this 5-year period. As I said, she's just not as fond as Poirot as she may have once been. Coming in at number 3 is Three Blind Mice and Other Stories. Number 2 is A Murder is Announced, and coming in at a very clear number 1, just far superior to any other book, no question about it, is Crooked House. So that is it for the years 1946 through 1950. We got 1951 through 1955 next time. More story collections, some non-series stuff, some Pro, some Miss Marple, I believe. I don't know for sure if we have another Mary Westmacott book, but if we don't have it next week, we have it the week after. So please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I will talk to you next time.